The vast, untamed expanse of Alaska stretched endlessly, a tapestry of jagged peaks, ancient glaciers, and dense, whispering forests. Its raw, unforgiving beauty was legendary, but so too was a darker tale whispered among those who called this icy wilderness home, the legend of the Alaska Triangle. This was no ordinary place, but a sinister vortex where countless planes, ships, and people had simply vanished without a trace, swallowed by an unknown force. Since the 1970s, over 16 Uraiwan individuals had disappeared within its ill-defined boundaries, leaving behind only chilling questions and an eerie silence. It was a place where the ordinary laws of physics seemed to fray, a realm of unexplained phenomena that defied logic and haunted the imaginations of all who dared to venture near. Elias Thorne knew these skies better than most. A seasoned bush pilot, his weathered hands were an extension of his plane's controls, his eyes perpetually scanning the horizon. Fiercely independent, Elias possessed an innate connection to the wilderness, a bond forged through years of challenging flights and solitary journeys. But beneath his rugged exterior lay a deep well of protectiveness, especially for his younger sister, Sarah. Their parents had perished years ago in a small plane crash, a tragedy that had etched itself onto Elias's soul, fueling his meticulous approach to flying and his unwavering devotion to Sarah. He was her guardian, her anchor, and her only family. One crisp Alaskan morning, Elias prepared for a high-stakes supply run, a mission that would take him deep into the heart of the Triangle, bound for a remote research facility. Sarah, her brow furrowed with an unspoken dread, watched him load supplies. "Elias, please," she began, her voice barely a whisper. "I have a bad feeling about this flight. It's different." Her premonition, a cold knot in her stomach, was something she couldn't shake. Elias, ever the pragmatist, offered a reassuring smile, brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "It's just the usual nerves, little sister. The Triangle always makes people jumpy. I'll be back before you know it, with stories of frozen scientists and maybe even a Yeti." His words were meant to comfort, but her unease persisted. Their final goodbye was a lingering hug, tighter than usual, as if both unconsciously sensed the weight of the moment. Elias climbed into his small, sturdy aircraft, its engine roaring to life, a familiar symphony against the vast silence. He gave Sarah a final wave, a confident grin, and then the plane soared into the immense, unforgiving wilderness. Moments after takeoff, a brief, unexplainable static crackled over the radio, followed by a fleeting visual distortion reported by Elias, dismissed by air traffic control as mere atmospheric interference. Then, an hour later, his plane vanished from radar. Attempts to contact him failed. The silence that followed was deafening, a chill that seeped into Sarah's bones. The search began, a frantic scramble against the clock in a landscape that swallowed secrets whole. Sarah's world fractured. Initial shock gave way to a chilling disbelief, then a fierce, burning determination. Elias, her brother, her protector, couldn't just be gone. The search team scoured the vast terrain, their efforts relentless but fruitless. No wreckage, no distress signal, not even a single trace of an impact site. The wilderness remained impassive, holding its secrets close. The eerie silence that had followed Elias's disappearance now consumed Sarah, a constant hum of dread. The legend of the Alaska Triangle, once a distant, chilling tale, began to consume her every waking thought, twisting its tendrils around her heart. She knew, with a certainty that defied reason, that she would find him. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Sarah's despair quickly calcified into an unyielding resolve. The official search had dwindled, the authorities citing the Triangle's notorious reputation, suggesting Elias had become another statistic in its grim ledger. They urged her to accept the inevitable, to grieve and move on. But Sarah couldn't. Her love for Elias, compounded by a gnawing guilt that she hadn't fought harder to keep him grounded, fueled her every waking moment. He wasn't gone, he was simply lost, and she would find him. Her relentless search began, a solitary crusade against the apathy of bureaucracy and the crushing weight of the wilderness. She plastered flyers, interrogated locals, and pored over every scrap of information, becoming a familiar, almost spectral figure in the small Alaskan towns bordering the Triangle. Her path soon crossed with Dr. Eris Thorne, the lead scientist at the remote research facility Elias had been flying to. Eris, a disgraced climatologist whose career had been derailed by a controversial theory years prior, was a man consumed by the unusual atmospheric phenomena centered within the Alaska Triangle. He saw redemption in unlocking its secrets, an opportunity to reclaim his scientific credibility. When Sarah first approached him, he dismissed Elias's disappearance as a tragic, if common, accident in such unforgiving terrain. He offered condolences, but his eyes held a distant, almost clinical detachment. Yet Sarah refused to be swayed. She returned to Elias's small cabin, a place now steeped in his memory, and began meticulously sifting through his belongings. Tucked away beneath a loose floorboard, she discovered a worn leather-bound journal. Its pages were filled not with flight logs but with Elias's meticulous observations, strange magnetic anomalies, sudden localized weather shifts that defied explanation, and peculiar light distortions he'd witnessed within the Triangle. He'd drawn crude maps, marking points where his compass had spun wildly or his radio had gone dead. Armed with this newfound evidence, Sarah confronted Dr. Thorne once more. She thrust the journal into his hands, her voice trembling slightly with a mixture of hope and accusation. "These aren't just a pilot's fanciful observations, Dr. Thorne. Elias was documenting something you might know about." Eris initially scoffed, dismissing the entries as anecdotal, the ramblings of a man spending too much time alone in the wilderness. He tried to hand the journal back, a dismissive wave of his hand, but Sarah wouldn't let it go. Her intuition, sharpened by grief and suspicion, told her there was more. She began digging into Eris Thorne's past, his grant applications, his discarded theories. What she uncovered sent a chill down her spine. Eris wasn't just observing, he was actively experimenting. He had been secretly conducting unauthorized energy experiments within the Triangle, convinced it held a unique, harnessable power, a natural portal or energy nexus, as he often theorized in his private notes. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Elias hadn't just vanished, he had stumbled upon something directly related to Eris's clandestine work. When Sarah confronted him with this damning discovery, Eris's facade finally cracked, his denials strained, but he vehemently maintained he knew nothing of Elias's fate. He swore his experiments were contained, harmless. The tension between them was now palpable, a thick, suffocating wall of distrust. Sarah felt a profound sense of betrayal, certain Eris knew more than he was letting on. As her search deepened, Sarah found herself drawn to the fringes of the Triangle, to the sparse, isolated communities that clung to its edges. There, she encountered an old prospector, a grizzled recluse whose eyes held the wisdom and weariness of 100 Alaskan winters. He spoke in cryptic warnings about things that steal light and the land's hunger, his voice raspy like dry leaves. He cautioned her against disturbing the Triangle, claiming it had a will of its own, a silent guardian of ancient secrets. His words, though vague, resonated with a primal fear Sarah couldn't ignore. She began to experience strange dreams, vivid and unsettling. Fleeting images flashed through her mind, shimmering lights, disorienting shifts in perspective, and the undeniable sense of Elias's presence, just beyond her grasp. Were these visions a product of her exhaustion and grief, or was the Triangle itself whispering to her, trying to communicate? One frigid afternoon, while meticulously examining Elias's plane, which had been recovered from a remote lake after a fisherman reported it, Sarah noticed a small, almost invisible latch beneath the pilot's seat. It opened to reveal a hidden compartment, expertly concealed. Inside, nestled amongst spare parts, was a single distorted photograph. It was blurry, unfocused, but undeniably captured an unusual energy signature emanating from the very heart of the Triangle. In the foreground, barely discernible, was a small, unidentifiable object. Sarah's heart pounded. This wasn't just a coincidence, it was a clue, a tangible link to Elias's last moments, and perhaps to his current whereabouts. The distorted photograph, clutched tightly in Sarah's trembling hand, became her final, irrefutable proof. She burst into Dr. Thorne's makeshift lab, the image thrust forward like an accusation. Eris, startled, dropped a beaker, its contents splashing harmlessly. His eyes, devoid of their usual scientific detachment, darted from Sarah's furious gaze to the blurry image. The energy signature, a pulsating vortex of light, was unmistakable. It was the very anomaly he had been chasing, the heart of his desperate, unauthorized experiments. His carefully constructed facade crumbled, with a heavy sigh that seemed to carry the weight of his scientific ambition and moral compromise. Eris finally confessed. He spoke of his lifelong obsession with the triangle's unique energy, his belief that it was a natural portal, a nexus of unknown forces. His experiments, ever more reckless, were designed to harness that power, to prove his discredited theories correct. He admitted that Elias, a meticulous observer, had likely flown too close to a localized energy surge, a volatile ripple in the fabric of reality his devices had inadvertently amplified. Elias's disappearance, he now believed, was not a crash, but a displacement, a shift, a fragile glimmer of hope ignited within Sarah. Eris theorized that the triangle didn't consume or destroy. It merely repositioned. People and objects weren't obliterated but potentially shunted into another dimension, a temporal distortion, or perhaps even another pocket of space-time within the triangle itself. The guilt etched on Eris's face was profound, a raw wound of scientific hubris and human consequence. He saw Elias not as a statistic, but as a victim of his own desperate quest for validation. This newfound understanding, coupled with Eris's crushing guilt, forged an unlikely alliance. Sarah, driven by love, and Eris, propelled by a desperate need for redemption, began planning a perilous expedition into the very heart of the triangle. Eris meticulously calibrated his most advanced experimental equipment, adapting it for search and rescue rather than energy manipulation. They would use Elias's journal entries, the prospector's cryptic warnings, and Eris's intimate knowledge of the triangle's anomalies to navigate its treacherous depths. Their journey was fraught with peril. The Alaskan wilderness, already unforgiving, intensified within the triangle's grasp. Blinding blizzards materialized from clear skies, their flakes stinging like ice shards. Magnetic fields warped their instruments, causing compasses to spin wildly, and communication devices to emit ear-splitting static. The psychological toll was immense. Whispers seemed to carry on the wind, indistinct voices that hinted at forgotten histories and impossible futures. Sarah, already haunted by dreams, felt a pervasive sense of unreality, a constant questioning of what was real and what was merely the triangle's illusion. Eris, too, wrestled with his conscience, the weight of his past mistakes pressing down on him. Yet, Sarah's unwavering love for Elias and Eris's burning desire for atonement pushed them forward step by arduous step. Finally, guided by the flickering readouts of Eris's modified equipment and a gut feeling that resonated with Elias's journal, they located the source of the energy signature from the photograph. Before them, pulsating like a giant iridescent jellyfish, was a shimmering vortex. It was a visible distortion in reality, a swirling kaleidoscope of light and shadow, humming with an otherworldly energy. Within the vortex they saw it. Fleeting glimpses of Elias's plane, battered but undeniably whole, appearing and disappearing as if caught between two worlds. It was a phantom, an echo of reality, trapped in the temporal currents of the anomaly. Eris, his face pale with a mixture of terror and awe, understood. The vortex was unstable, constantly shifting, preventing anything from fully passing through. A terrible realization dawned on him. To stabilize the vortex, to create a window long enough for Elias to return, he would have to overload his experimental device. It was a desperate, almost suicidal act, a controlled explosion of the very energy he had sought to harness. The device, designed to manipulate, would now be used to sacrifice itself, to force open a stable pathway. Without hesitation, Aris made his choice. With a grim determination, he initiated the overload sequence, the device humming ominously before erupting in a blinding flash of light. The ground trembled, and the vortex, for a precious few moments, solidified, its chaotic energy momentarily tamed. Through the now stable gateway, Elias's plane, battered but intact, surged forward, breaking free from the distortion. It landed with a jarring thud, its engine sputtering. Sarah, tears streaming down her face, ran towards it, her heart soaring with an unbridled joy. Elias, disoriented but alive, emerged from the cockpit, his eyes wide with disbelief as he saw his sister. Their reunion was a silent, powerful embrace, a testament to an unbreakable bond that had defied the laws of physics and the vastness of the unknown. Aris Thorne, his sacrifice complete, was gone. His actions, a final act of redemption, had brought Elias home. The Alaska Triangle remained. Its mystery deepened, but its nature now understood not as a destroyer but as a repositioner. The secrets it held were still immense, but a seed of hope had been planted. For those lost within its enigmatic embrace, perhaps there was now a chance for return, a pathway home.